Hey, it's Jeff Kanata back with another newest, latest, best mini, and I had to do this one. You know I had to do this one. Avengers Infinity War. Now, if you know anything about me, if you've ever listened to any of my shows, watched anything on this channel, you know I am a Marvel zombie from way back. What does that mean? That means I have a deep, deep love of these Marvel characters. I grew up reading the comics, and they meant a lot to me. They really did. I wasn't a kid that had a lot of friends when I was growing up. I was a nerd when nerd meant nerd. And I escaped into these characters and this mythology, specifically the Marvel characters. I read some DC as well. But I really fell in love with these characters, and the cinematic universe seemed so impossible at that time. It seemed like a fantasy that would never in a million years come true. And the fact that we've had such a big roster of characters, all of the A-list and B and C-list characters that are now sort of filling out that world. And I never thought anything like the Avengers could be possible. The first Avengers movie felt like this fulfillment of a wish that I must have wished 1,000 times when I was a little kid, but never thought could be possible. And the fact that that was just one step to getting where we are now with Infinity War, that bringing together Thor and Iron Man and Hulk and Black Widow and Hawkeye in their own, having had their own movies introduced and these characters fleshed out, seeing their origin stories, and then bringing them together into a team, that felt impossible. And the fact that that is just a small percentage of where we are now, when we have so many more characters, so many more films, such big name talent, A-list talent, filling out all these characters, and the fact that the universe itself still feels cohesive and still has so much life and breadth to it, and that all these characters now, every inch of this world, from the galactic Guardians of the Galaxy to the pedestrian Peter Parker, can all fit into one movie, into one story, is extraordinary. I think that Marvel Studios has pulled off the most audacious feat in cinema history. Infinity War is impossible. And yet it exists, and it's amazing. It is. Now, you have to understand, this is not an objective review. I am not neutral on this topic. I stood in line when I must have been 13 at Comic-Con waiting for Ron Lim to sign the cover of my Infinity Gauntlet comic book because I was so in love with that concept. This scale of galactic threat that requires every nook and cranny of the Marvel universe to come together and fight it is it's a childhood escape that I loved. Okay, so I don't know how this movie is going to land on the average film goer. I think we have been brought into this world in such an organic, evolutionary way that each film builds on the next, and the ideas get crazier and crazier. I mean, the fact that broad, wide audiences can embrace something as weird as Rocket Raccoon and Groot is proof that these concepts are now mainstream. But this is the most comic book movie that has ever been made. This is as wild and out there and full of crazy ideas bumping into each other, all around a central concept that is crazy sci-fi. It's crazy fantasy writing, right? It is comic book storytelling. And yet, all of the characters in the movie get their just rewards. They all get their moment. They all get something special to do. They all feel essential to the story. They're not just crammed in because we have these characters. They all have their own special role to play in the story, and multiple times most of the characters have multiple incredible things to do and to say and to contribute to what is a sprawling and yet I think very clear, very cogent plot, which is impossible, right? The idea that this intergalactic being wants to collect all of these gems to create the ultimate weapon of power to be a god. I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything. You should go into this movie with no spoilers whatsoever. Give yourself that gift. Go into Infinity War with no spoilers because it is audacious on every level. It's audacious that they pulled this thing off. It's audacious where the movie goes. My jaw was on the floor by the end of this film. It is truly a gift to people with fantasy in their heart, right? With these characters in their heart. It's truly a gift to lovers of comic book storytelling. And it is funny and thrilling. I mean, I think I missed many, many lines of dialogue in this movie because the audience was laughing at the previous line of dialogue. It is very funny, tons of great character moments, and that's what's so special about Marvel Studios is they get that what's important here, what's essential here are characters, that the characters are where your bread is buttered, that if we fall in love with these characters interacting with one another and having fun with one another and living inside all of the information that we already know about them, it is so much more fun for us as the audience. And they lean into that so hard. It is not afraid to be silly and fun and jam characters that don't belong to with one another next to each other. And yet I think it also has not just a beam in the sky type bad guy. Thanos is an interesting bad guy here with an interesting methodology and an interesting ideology that he believes in, and you can sort of see where he's coming from. I think they learned a lot with Black Panther and having a villain that actually has weight of his own. And really, this is Thanos' story in a lot of ways, this movie. It's an extraordinary thing to pull off a digital character like this. Josh Brolin's amazing in the part. And kudos to Marvel Studios for recognizing that they shouldn't adjust his voice in some way. They shouldn't make him a cartoon, right? He is a digital character, but he feels like a person. He feels real. They leave Brolin's voice alone. They don't give it, this godlike feeling that sometimes you see them do. Justice League is a great example. The bad guy in that movie is just two-dimensional, right? Here, Brolin is allowed to act and give weight and be tender and sort of make his case for his ideology, and that is so much more compelling, as we learned in Black Panther. So much more compelling to have a villain whose ideology is sympathetic and understandable. They've gone too far. They're too extreme. They are the villain. But there's something there, right? And that's what we have with Thanos in this movie. The set pieces are wall to wall. Extraordinary. So fun. How they managed to make the Guardians of the Galaxy's intergalactic world marry with, the Avengers in New York City and make all of that work, and we go back and forth between them, and it doesn't feel jarring. It doesn't feel like they're shoehorning things in. It all feels tight and clear and essential and fun. My God, is this movie fun. I was laughing and cheering, clapping in my seat. There are moments of incredible, rousing heroism. There are characters that you want to see. I mean, there's a moment with Steve Rogers and T'Challa where they just run out ahead. It is so thrilling and so fun. Oh, I love this movie. I came out of it. I couldn't believe where it went. I couldn't believe what we got to see. I couldn't believe all of the wonderful little comic book Easter eggs that are strewn throughout it. The deep, deep lore that we get, like it's nothing. Having Vision and Scarlet Witch fall in love with one another is not a big deal. It's so canon with the comics, and yet shouldn't work on the big screen. It shouldn't work with an android character and a human. It shouldn't work. I mean, you get such awesome moments wall to wall with this movie. Incredible fight scenes, incredible flights of fancy, cool ideas, great teamwork, interesting combinations of the characters, and a boldness from Marvel in where they're willing to take this universe and these characters that is unmatched, cinematically unmatched. They are risky on the highest scale because this is, I think, undoubtedly going to be the biggest grossing film of the year. Well, maybe not of the year. Black Panther might be that. But of the summer, let's say. And so I mean, these are big stakes, right? And yet they're willing to be so bold and not precious with those commodities. It's a triumph. I am so thrilled, but I can't wait for you guys to see it. Tell me what you think about it, but please keep the spoilers out of this video. No spoilers. It is, I think, a gift to watch this movie without knowing what's going to happen. And my goodness, is it a thrill.